And welcome to our beautiful State House Chamber and to Farmers Night, a tradition that goes back over 100 years. I'm Representative John Bartholomew, and along with Representative Mary Catherine Stone and Senator Allison Clarkson have the privilege of producing Farmers Night. Senator Clarkson is sitting over here. It's a privilege, so we don't need applause. It's great fun. I also need to introduce our state curator, David Sheets, who is also here. And we couldn't do this without his staff. They do all the publicity. If you need to do a state house tour and you can get him as the guide, that is the best. So try and score David if you can do that. I also need to thank our Sergeant at Arms, Agatha Kessler, because they helped with our logistics in her office. And of course the Capitol Police. We couldn't stay open if they weren't here and willing to help out. We have to acknowledge these folks every week, because literally we could not do this without their help and support. And of course, there would be no point in doing this if you weren't here. So thanks to all of you for being here. Next week is town meeting, so the stage will be dark, so don't come next week. But other than that, we'll be here every week until the 9th of August. We've got some great stuff coming up. I'm sorry, what?
April.
What did I say? August? It was so warm today. Let's see, so the 9th of January, did I say? No. 9th of April is when we're back. Don't come next week. We're midway through our 2025 season. We'll be presenting and celebrating more great Vermont artists in music and humanities, including Irish music, blues, jazz, and some poetry. So come back every week. What did I say? I said no, wait. Sorry, March 12th is when we're back.
Right.
Have I confused everybody totally now?
No.
Not next week. March 12th, we're back. Vermont Symphonic Winds. We're going to have musicians and vocalists, and they're going to present a performance of classical and contemporary selections. Tonight, we have a very special performance presented by the Friends of the Vermont State House. So I would like to introduce Thaddeus Gibson, who's the chair of the Friends, to introduce our performer for this evening.
Yes, as he said, my name is Thaddeus. I am the chair of the board of the Friends, and it's our pleasure to present to you this evening. We do our best to sort of steward the building as a cultural institution, and I think, not to get too serious too quickly, but I think whatever your political persuasion, we live in sort of uncertain times right now, and our institutions that maybe we depended on our whole lives, we have some questions about them, but I'm here to tell you that the Vermont State House remains, in my estimation, a very strong institution, and there's a wonderful community around this building that I really appreciate. And so I would invite all of you, if you are interested in getting more involved with the State House, we are always looking for volunteers as tour guides, especially. We have a sign-up sheet outside this evening. If that interests you, we're also taking donations. And one other thing we're doing right now is that we're raising money or acting as the fiscal agent for the estate of Lavinia Bright, who was the first Black woman to serve in the Vermont legislature. And they're raising money for a portrait for her, and you can donate to that on our website if that interests you as well. So those are some of the things that we're up to right now. As to this evening, Toussaint is, he's a poet, he's a milliner, he is a musician, and he is now a published author, and there is a book outside that you can purchase to support him and to enrich yourself. And I believe that autographs will be available at the end of the performance, so highly endorse that. Please check it out. And I've never had the privilege of seeing him perform before, but it did come on my radar when I was working at the Arts Council more than 10 years ago. And I'm very glad now that I finally had the chance to see him perform, so I'll give him a hand, and I look forward to this evening.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
I so appreciate you joining me on this truly momentous occasion, certainly in my career as a poet. I'm going to begin with a piece of music. So I'm a multi-instrumentalist, all in one instrument. I play multiple clarinets. And tonight I'll be playing the bass clarinet and the contralto clarinet. And I'll be grilling you on that as we go along. So I'm gonna open with the bass clarinet. It's so nice to hear whistles, you know. You don't often hear that at 65. It is such an honor to be here and to share my poems with you. I'm going to begin with a poem from my book here. I will primarily be reading poems from my book, Mountain Spells, but I also have some new poems that I'll be sharing as well. The first poem I'm going to do is called Out in My Yard. I love my stars. Out where I live, I ain't got but 1/100th of an acre. But I got 85,263 stars. I got so many stars. Ain't no fence big enough to keep them. I love my stars. Sometimes I'll walk a mile in the sky just to see each and every one of them. If I ain't got but a middle of the spittle, I'll be damned if I ain't got 85,263 stars, all shining brighter than a dime in redemption. I love my stars. Ain't but a yard full of the universe. I love my stars, just as pretty as a bowl full of bliss. Right. The life of a poet, as some of you might know, is not quite as wealthy as one might assume financially. It's certainly wealthy in all sorts of other ways. But when I wrote that poem, it was at a time when the stars were pretty much all I had. And they've been with me ever since. They're always with me. This next poem I'm going to do, which amazingly was heard on the radio today during a rebroadcast on BPR. It's called Cosmographies in Blue. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Down a song flowing north amid the boreal wilderness of innermost transformation appears the realm of the soul-rising mountains of the moon at dawn. Obliged by the gods, down a song of stars and coniferous splendor, breathes the calling of reaches higher than our shadows can modernly conceive. Down a song flowing north rises the dawnland of illuminations, welcoming the innermost of elevations to passages of expansions duly received. Behold, such noble means of galactic introspection. Behold, each peak surrounding peak upon peak upon peak. Behold, each bewitching reach. Behold, this ascension of irrepressible peace. Irrepressible peace. Irrepressible peace. Behold your emancipation from all dominions otherwise. For here is where your unconquerable wilderness glistens in the liberty your passion calls home. Welcoming all illuminations to the dawnland incandescence of innermost reclamations, unshackling the sages from the ages, long now blazing and found. Down this song, flowing north amid the boreal chicories, lining the cosmos from the astral floor, appears the realm of the soul-rising mountains of the moon at dawn. Obliged by the gods of blossoming cosmographies, behold this land your passion calls home. I look so forward to when I finally get to play Carnegie Hall and I'll have page turners and hopefully my page turners will be more than my pallbearers. upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom. Oh, if I could only show you the view from there. Once upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom. Oh, if I could only show you the view from there. Liberation for as far as your soul can see. We'll all be loving all the love we please. Once upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom. By this point, folks will have consciously obliterated all forms of bigotry a long, long time ago. No presumption of supremacy shall ever be allowed there. Once upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom. We will know this to be true because we have always known this to be true, as is the artistry of the horn of the moon. The handiwork of our liberation shall be painted clear across our lives in all the spectral hues of translucent transformation, transcendentally raising all ascendant affirmations. Once upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom, liberation for as far as your soul can see. In pots big as human dignity, folks will be cooking up, folks will be cooking up, folks will be cooking up radicalizations of things that today we couldn't even think to believe. There will be jazz and beats of people dancing in the streets. Folks will be so free, folks will be so free, folks will be so free, won't nobody remember any other way to be. Oh, if I could only show you the view from there. I'm hoping we get to that day very, very soon. Yeah. And speaking of revolution, I want to read a poem here that I wrote for my mother during that first horrible year of COVID when everything was shut down. I had actually planned on flying to go spend Mother's Day with my mother, and all the planes were down, and so I wrote this poem for her and sent her a video. Enjoyed it. And it's just called Just One Bowl of Love. It's kind of a short biography of growing up with my mother. My mother, having raised an entire revolution, my mother, makes a whole loaf of freedom from a bowl of access denied. My mother takes a spoonful of sugar and a handful of courage and sees to the horizons of boundless generations. With the taste of sweet potato pie and a generous amount of divine seasoning, my mother has sweetened the courage of every step I take forward. My mother can nourish the consciousness of the entire table from just one bowl of love. My mother makes the whole world so much more livable, knowing full well I love her more than a mere quarantine of miles can ever tell. I love my mother. This next poem I'm going to do, one of my favorite poems and one of the first poems I wrote when I moved to Vermont back in 1934. This is one of my earliest Vermont poems. And a very dear friend of mine who grew up in Boulder, Colorado, who was living here, his mother just passed, I think just a couple days ago. And he had given her this book. Unfortunately, I never got to meet her. But apparently, she loved this poem, and she shared this poem apparently as like her last words. Huge honor. It's called Wings, Joys, Truths, and Innermost Meanings. Live from your own heart of hearts, here's today's forecast. Calling, 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 calling for gale force harmonies. Calling for showers of impromptu calming. Calling for untold gusts of unauthorized affirmations. With winds of free-thinking epiphanies, winds of free-thinking epiphanies reaching truth scale speeds of up to 1 billion renegade lifetimes per happiness. Calling, 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 calling for elevations, calling for elevations, calling for elevations higher than age-old fears, higher than age-old fears, calling for elevations higher than age-old fears, calling for all those with blues to breathe, to raise our wings, raise our joys, truths, and innermost meanings, and dig this gorgeous right to simply resound and gleam. Calling for all unknown scales of peace to blow in at such a pace, even you might just feel the breeze and believe. you're driving along and the weather comes on, you might hear me talking about. Good day. As a jazz musician, I work with a lot of improvisation, and I work with the challenge of the spontaneity of composing on the spot. And as a poet, my words are definitely composed, literally, like on a page. But when I perform, I select the poems in a similar, same sort of improvisation way. This is a poem I wrote just a couple years ago as I was listening on the radio to the latest reports of climate change and devastation. And you know how I've gotten so accustomed to every year, seems like every year, certainly for the last 20 years, we hear the same report. In fact, I'm sure it's probably just the tape that they put in. The same report that says, guess what? This year was hotter than last year. Wow! This year was hotter than last year. And I'm sure we'll hear the same thing about the winter, even though it was too dang cold for me. This winter was warmer than last year. So I wrote this poem called If Columbus Stayed Home. I'll just add here, I grew up in Northern California, San Francisco, the Bay Area. And it wasn't until as an adult, like in my 20s, that I really learned about the redwoods, which are right there. And I not only learned how spectacularly beautiful and peaceful they are, just remembering when I lived there before I moved here, I always told all my friends to, no matter what happens, to definitely bury me in the redwoods, away from the yellow slugs, but in the redwoods. Now that I'm here, Vermont might have to do. Don't tell my California friends. So, but yeah, I not only learned about the beauty of redwoods, but the history of their destruction. The fact that all of the beautiful historic homes, Victorian homes in San Francisco, were all built. It's all redwood, all of them. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful architecture, annihilation of a life form. And so with that, I'll begin this poem. If Columbus stayed home. As the world begins to boil, it becomes all the more clear, as if it had been abundantly apparent beforehand. What would have happened if Columbus stayed home? If the Mayflower had veered towards the course of the Titanic? If all the arbiters of the alleged New World had stayed home, had stayed in Europe, if all their mechanizations and schemes of prosperity had greedily ruined all of their own lands, had poisoned their own waters, had spawned the diseases and ecological catastrophes and systemic generations of demoralizations that could have better served their own populations. What would have happened here on this land and other lands of the globe if Europe had simply stayed home? What billions of children could have known the arms of their own cultures, their own languages, their own bodies, without the appointed loins of modern civilization? What would have happened to this planet if Columbus had simply stayed his ass home? And the redwoods just kept growing. This is just a short poem. I actually wrote this here in Montpelier one day while I used to live here years ago. And while walking through Hubbard Park up near the tower, as I was approaching the tower, there were a couple white women who, upon seeing me, ran. Vermont. And so I wrote this poem. And one of the great things about being a poet is, as far as like dealing with hate, dealing with stress, dealing with pain, is that you can process it through the form of art, through the form of poetry or music. I think it's true with all the disciplines. And this one is called Peekaboo. Just because you close your eyes doesn't mean I'm not here. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it remarkable how profoundly I do exist with or without your eyes? This is just a short poem, totally echoing my belief in mountains as spiritual entities. I was driving, I live up in the Northeast Kingdom, and I was driving around Lake Willoughby from 5A to 16 and looking at all the spectacular views and mountains around Lake Willoughby and how the views change the further you go and from different perspectives, and it was a total aren't mountains wonderful sort of moment. And I wrote just a short poem called Aloft Within. Aloft Within. Like any divine worship, my love of the mountains is humbled from their feet. You can't climb God. You can try, but you can't see Everest from the top. That has meaning to me. I love seeing mountains from the ground. It is spectacular to see the views from the top, but the best views are from the ground, especially of a mountain. Okay. I want to do a couple of recent poems. I wrote one poem I just completed last night that was inspired by the work, the beautiful brilliance and truth-telling Roberta Flack. Yeah, it's beyond the sadness. I find something really beautiful about when someone from your lifetime passes. It becomes such an intense recognizing of how pivotal that person is to your life. And sometimes we don't quite get that until they pass. But Roberta was definitely one of those. But before I read that poem, I'm going to read this poem here called Say It Loud. Did you know that we can be emboldened too? Did you know we can be emboldened too? We can be emboldened to love, even ourselves. We can be emboldened to say no thanks to hate. We can be emboldened to say it loud. I'm here and I'm proud. We can be emboldened to find that indeed we know how it feels to be free. We can be emboldened to shine all the time. We can be emboldened to live even as ourselves. Did you know? Did you know? We can be emboldened too. It's all the rage. What else are we to do? I do remind and encourage everyone that, definitively, like as far as the dictionary is concerned, there's nothing wrong with being emboldened. And that, okay, sure, you can be emboldened in wrong ways, but you can also be emboldened in good ways. And we don't have to, I say we, I hope I'm not being too generous, but we don't have to give up our language, give up our words, our good words, like emboldened, to people that want to hurt. We can be emboldened too. Okay. So this next poem I'm going to do, I'm sorry, I had a cold a couple weeks ago and I thought I had gotten rid of the cough. Would I going to get some water? This next poem I'm going to do is called Rocking Herd. As in, like, did you hear me? Herd. Rocking herd. Peace is not passive. Peace is a verb and action led by being in person, out front, and in good faith. Peace is not passive. Peace is a verb. Peace is not a performative Tuesday. Peace is a mandatory realization, emboldening the right way of every which way we need to go. Peace, is not passive. Peace is a verb, rocking life and rocking herd. Yeah, I like that poem. Since January 20th, I've been reminding myself of certain definitions. And one day I found myself just Googling the difference between being a pacifist, F-S-T, and being a passivist. And they often get confused. This is a poem I did a couple months ago as I was shoveling a ton of snow. I live in a part of the Northeast Kingdom that's about 20 miles from the Yukon. And we get a lot of snow. And it was one of those before we fell into that 12-month-long deep freeze we just went through. I got one of those really heavy, wet, big snows and had to shovel out my car. As grand as it is to be 65 and to be like, I can shovel out my car. I'm just as strong as anybody else. And then there's the reality of, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done with shoveling. I paid my dues. And to the old timers that have literally done it for 95 years, God bless you. But I wrote this one, and the title is actually, This is Not About Snow. Kind of reminiscent of the painting, Ce n'est pas un pipe by great painter Magritte. You know, the translation, this is not a pipe, because it's a painting of a pipe. And so this is called, This is Not About Snow. And I'm explaining this because I had to explain this to so many of my friends. The worst thing you can do to a poet is to make them explain metaphors. I think that's the most hellish thing. If I end up going to hell where I have to spend eternity explaining metaphors, it would drive me crazy. So, this is not about snow. Life is like shoveling snow. The first hour seems monotonous. Seems like you'll never be able to move all that snow. But by the third or fourth hour, it doesn't seem so bad. Shovel by shovel, you just gotta keep on shoveling. All the way down the road. I feel like that was one of those old-timer sort of poems. Here in okay, this is my interpretation of Roberta Flack's Trying Times. If you haven't heard that song, I definitely recommend listening to it, especially in these times that we're in now. Is anyone familiar with the phrase trying times? Has anyone ever had trying times? I remember the first time I heard the use of trying that way was with my grandmother. And my grandmother would say things like, "You're really trying my nerves." And it took me, I was little, but it took me a few years to understand it. But as a poet, I love creative uses of words. So these are trying times. trying times. Trying times. These are trying times, much like the very same times Roberta Flack sang across the very same signs of dying eyes and dying minds. America is dying to be blind. America has always been dying to be blind in these trying times, trying times, trying times. As we look towards our own cowardice, trying our best to not see our own cowardice, we are trying to lose our minds. We are trying to lose our minds so that in these trying times we can pretend that we are always doing fine. Because these are trying times. And America is dying to be blind. America is dying to be blind. Dying to not see the freely elected implosion of our lives. The freely elected annihilation of our blackness, of our brownness, of our queerness, our transness. We are dying not to see the freely elected annihilation of our freedoms, the freely elected annihilation of our futures, the freely elected annihilation of our rights to shine as we are. America is dying not to see who we are. America is dying not to see who we are. America is dying to be blind in these trying times, trying our best to lose our minds so as not to see the freely elected fascism of these trying times. This poem I'm going to do, and one of the things I love about this book is there's a real broad mix of poems and experiences and perceptions. And this is one I wrote as a conversation with my 25-year-old self, called Rocking You. Dear 25-year-old me, I'm sorry to say I've stepped into the future, some 35 years from now, only to discover that dreams of precious boyfriends fade just as ghostly as affordable housing. And it turns out that America really has no interest in rocking you like a hurricane, but actually prefers the presumed calm of fascism. And apparently, what turned out to be far worse than the presumption of liberty is the absolute absurdity of believing we had ever belonged. Please do believe in me. And please do disturb the peace. All right, I'm going to do just a couple more. And thank you so much for coming out and staying. It's been such an honor to read in this house, in this room. I've done a few devotionals early in the morning, and it has been such an honor and a joy to be asked to come back for Farmers Night. I'm reflecting back to like my first few weeks in Vermont when I first moved here in 2009. And there were so many random strangers who came up to me and would ask, "Why did you move here?" And they were waiting for an answer. They pulled up a chair. And while I'm in a constant process of answering that question, this is definitely one of them. I so appreciate all the love and support I've gotten here in Vermont as an artist, as a poet. I so appreciate it. It's not something that I have always experienced in other places. I was having a conversation earlier with friends about the sense of belonging in Vermont. And despite some of Vermont's struggles that are the same struggles as any other state in this country against belonging. One of the things that is so beautiful is how there is a belonging here. I feel like I belong here just as much as Camel Hunt belongs here. When I was reading about Vermont when I moved here, I don't remember saying that a visa was required. So this next poem I'm going to do is called Blues for the Masses. And it's honoring my dear friend, the great poet, Reuben Jackson, who unfortunately died just last year, right about this time. Blues for the Masses. Remember when our intelligence was a thing? Remember that? Remember when human intelligence was the ticket to moving forward? When wisdom won the race? When that which separates a bad road from a good road was one's ability to align the stars and go? Remember when human intelligence discovered things, built things, solved things, answered things, wrote things, sang things, moved things, summoned things, believed things, loved things that otherwise seemed impossible? Remember when human intelligence was a thing? When the smartest way forward was your own. And, I'm going to close this out with a poem that's at the front of my book. I put it in kind of like as a preface for the book. And it's called For All the World to See. And I want to just add here, especially in these trying times, I have always found personally, and I think that this is true historically, that your best defense, especially in terms of bullying, in terms of hatred, your best defense is being even more of yourself. That's your best defense. And I know we often think that hiding is a good defense, or cowering, or self-sabotage. But I think, as we all know, those of us who have been around the block a few times, hiding in a hole is not helpful. One of my favorite quotes from the great poet Audre Lorde is, "Your silence will not protect you," just in case you need to know. And so this poem is called For All the World to See. For all the world to see. And I wrote it, so again, a little more information here. Back when I was 19, I had this intense calling, crazy calling, like similar to the way in various religious traditions people will say they were spiritually called to go live in Indiana. Not Indiana. India. God bless it, it was called. But India. Or any way you could be spiritually called to do something. And I had this intense calling to move to Haiti and to go live in Haiti. Since I was a child, I had been enthralled by Haitian art, Haitian writing, Haitian culture, and how intensely African a lot of Haitian culture still remains today. And so I scared my mother to death, and I dropped out of school, out of college, and got on a Greyhound bus to Miami and flew to Haiti. And I ended up living there for 3 years. And it was one of the most constructive experiences in my life, much like Vermont has been. And one of the things I learned in Haiti and in the Caribbean, through studying all the Caribbean traditions, French-speaking, English-speaking, Jamaican, Haitian, from different islands, is the use of I as a plural. To say, instead of saying we're hungry, you say I'm hungry, or I and I are hungry. I'm hungry, but not meaning me, but I as a we. So this poem is written in that tense. And I hope it could be an inspiration for many generations to come. To be yourself and let your light shine. Did anyone grow up singing the song, "This Little Light of Mine"?
Yes.
What's the
I'm
rest?
gonna let it shine.
Okay. Do you think that song was a joke? No.
No.
Now is the time. Now is the time. I'm dead serious. Let that light shine. Now is the time for all the world to see. And here, my beloved earth and cohabitants, we have the rare and luminous star-crested liberationist, a fine and mellowed creature of soul-sonic proportions, though known for their glamorous plumage and flights of doubt-defying freedoms, the star-crested liberationist, more notably, is a creature of remarkable autonomy, iridescently shining, not for societal approval, but brilliantly by and for their own known emancipation. Consequently, it is through such lavish self-appreciation that the star-crested liberationist is fabulously so adept at lighting and divining such unshackling skies, at lighting and divining such unshackling skies for all the world to see. I'm going to do just one more. It's short. A poet can never stop. I like this poem because it's kind of autobiographical, but also like just tells the whole story. About 4 years ago, I finished with the help of a whole lot of people, some of whom might be here in this room, who helped me build a house for me. Helped me build my house, a tiny house. And the name of my house is the Star House. And I've been living in it for about 4 years now, and it's absolutely wonderful. The roof doesn't leak. I love my house. It is tiny. I'm about ready for a mansion, but I love my house. And this is called How I Built My Star House. It started with making poems, seeing the alchemic results of pairing transcendence with the trodden floor, taking the seeds of some way forward and adding palpable visions from a river of things yet to be seen, building modes of liberation from roads of inner-born meanings. Then it began to flourish through the making of hats, through the creation of crowns, anointing each vision I grasped, turning poems into high-feathered hats, and with colors of courage and destinies blessed, with the galactic clarity of an incandescent breath, whole poems began to sound from the far outer reaches of a blown bass clarinet. Soon entire cosmographies of freedom began to speak into being, reap into healing, reach into seeing, freeing into believing, feeling into gleaning my way home. It started with making poems, turning mountains into navigational tones, finding marauders upon these high ridge bones of futures crowning to be shown. It started with making vessels from dreams forest grown. It started with making the asterism of a drinking gourd into the castle of my very own home. And thus is born the Star House. It started with making poems.